update from the province yet?
Well, we just got that good old Friday dump of information. We're pretty. This is a very hectic week, I know, for county council, but I'm sure we will be reviewing it all as we often do when we get those lovely updates on the Fridays, and gives us no time to actually days of the week to actually review and implement new updated programs for everything. But hopefully, I don't expect it will be much longer with the reduction in restrictions and whatnot. I just don't know if it would be the township office and in the guise of, mitigating risk for the essential work that, those individuals are still doing is still TBD. As far as, I'm not sure if we'll be meeting there, but I know that we've used some of the CMCC meeting rooms because of the increased space, etc. And, so if we do, it was likely that we might meet in one of those rooms instead of in the township office, because it's still actually under construction as well. I don't know if people are aware of that, but we received a grant to do some substantial work so that the council chambers is now in the gym. So that gym is no longer, but those renovations, and I think the renovations are almost done, but I don't think the AV stuff is fully finished yet. So that's why it would probably be taking place in that other room. So lots of moving parts, but hopefully soon.
Right. Okay. All right. Thanks everybody for joining. Can I get an approval of the agenda? Any changes or additions? No.
I'll move the approval.
Okay. Second.
I'll second.
Maureen. Okay, great. All in favor?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so unfortunately, we've had a resignation of our latest member, Christine Ball. Cindy, do you want to elaborate on that a bit and sort of describe the process? We're all going to have to reapply as of October 2022, correct? So I think we've got a year left.
Correct, Chairman Jackson. And yes, we did receive a resignation from Ms. Ball. So what we need to do is accept the resignation, and we'll send a letter of thanks for her efforts with the committee. And then staff will review any of the applications that we currently have. If we feel we can contact somebody in-house, then we will, and we'll take that to closed session to council. If not, then we'll run an ad to fill the vacancy.
Okay, so that could be, did we have a timeline on that by next meeting, or are you anticipating potentially not until January of 2022?
Hopefully by the next meeting. So currently we have our next meeting scheduled for November 22nd, which was established originally, but that is not the last Monday in November. So if we want to push it out, we might give us time to get us an applicant and get the report to council, and then have somebody appointed to the committee for the last meeting. Our second meeting for council is November 15th.
Okay, because we do not meet in December.
As it stands now, we don't, but it is at the call of the chair. So if we felt that we couldn't get a member in place by November and we wanted to have another meeting in December, we could definitely do that. It's at the call of the chair.
Great. Okay. Anybody have any questions around that?
I just need a mover and a seconder to accept the resignation and just allow staff to proceed with filling the vacancy.
Right. Thank you. Can I have a mover, please?
I'll move that.
Dave or John, sorry. Second?
I can second it.
Dave. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Ms. Page, will you draft that letter?
Yes, I will, Chairman Jackson. I can just send it on behalf of the committee if the committee is comfortable with that.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay. The minutes of meeting held September 27th, 2021. Does anybody have any discussion around that? Any changes, omissions, edits?
Is my hand up there?
Yep. John?
I was in attendance, and it's not shown that I was there or missing, I believe.
Oh, okay. Sorry to miss you on that.
It's okay.
Can we make that edit, Ms. Page?
For you, Chairman Jackson, the minutes are in front of us, and no, he's not listed. I apologize. We'll put him on there.
Okay, great. Anything else?
Just a couple little typos in 8.4, even at the end of a sentence, I think was meant to be a vent. And in 8.6, peruse or perusing or peruse or whatever is, I think, supposed to be pursue or pursuing. I haven't got the minutes right in front of me.
We can make that change to 8.4 and change pursuing to 8.6 and 8.6.
Okay.
Just a question on that. I'm looking at members absent. Do we have a M&R representative that is supposed to be attending these meetings?
Yeah, you'd sent an email about that earlier.
I did.
Did Yvette get back to you on that?
No, not as of yet.
She didn't. Okay.
So through you, Chairman Jackson, I can speak high level to what I understand from Ms. Hurley is that we're working on reviewing the memorandum of understanding with the M&R. And as it stands now, I don't believe there is a representative.
It's John, is your question more around our operating procedures, i.e. are we required one as part of the overall agenda of the committee?
Yeah, it is. I know we had one for years, and it seems like, since COVID hit, we haven't had anybody attending our Zoom meetings. And I just wondered if it was a requirement.
I think it predated COVID as far as I know, although we have had ongoing communication with Jeff Wiltshire since he stopped coming. I mean, he was involved to some extent with cedar removal and replacing the bench, where putting the bench back where it was supposed to have been. And he also helped us get the Johnny on the spot for the Mill Ponds parking lot, even though he wasn't in attendance. But I think it had more to do with the funding restrictions to MNRNF. I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I know it was a lot easier to get. Oh, sorry.
I just want to interject for clarification purposes. I do have the terms of reference here, and it is not a requirement to have a representative from the MNR, just Orca, which we do have. Ms. Carter represents that portion for us. So the composite consists of 8 members and 1 Orca representative.
Okay.
Okay, well, word has it that MNR staff are going to be going back into the office at least one day a week starting in November. So things may slowly start to change to normal. So we can maybe pursue it as of 2022 in terms of representation back on the committee.
I believe Ms. Hurley is awaiting to hear what they come back with the MOU, but I do believe that's not out of the picture. It's just she's waiting to hear back to hear what the MNR comes back with to her.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions on that before we get back to the agenda? Okay. Any other changes to the agenda then? Any other edits? Maureen, looks like your mouse moving, but you're on mute.
Hit it. I'd like to report on the tree planting that we did earlier this summer. And I'd also like to ask. Sorry, Maureen.
Sorry, I was referring to the minutes. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah. We can bring that up in other business.
Okay.
Sorry, just the minutes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Any other edits or changes to the minutes from from the September meeting? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll make that motion or second it.
Okay. Dave makes the motion. Maureen seconds it. All in favor? Great. Okay. Wonderful. Just bring that up. Okay. Okay, let's move on then to financial report. Melissa?
Yeah, thank you. So there's only one entry that's come through since the last month's meeting, and it was $1,800 the Friends of the Hope Mill. I'm assuming that might be wood,
Mhm.
correct? That's the only thing that's come through. So total of the 6,300 budgeted, you have 1824.39 left.
Okay, so I would add, I was made aware of an invoice that came through earlier today from the building center in Peterborough that was purchases I made for Workday yesterday for a retaining wall, wood and rebar, etc. So that's about, it was about $200, I think.
Was those are the ones Chris asked you about?
That's correct. I responded to Chris earlier today that those were
Okay.
in fact Millbrook Valley Trail charges.
Awesome.
So we've got about $1,600 ish left then. Is that correct, Melissa?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, you would have 1,600 left.
Okay, great. Okay, any questions around that? Reminder that we, maybe Ms. Page, you could, or Melissa, you could remind us in terms of the budget process. I think Yvette sent me an email last week saying that we needed, oh yeah, okay, 8.4, right. Okay, thank you. We can discuss then. Meredith, Orca update.
Thank you, Chair Jackson. There's currently a flood watch in effect. Everyone has noticed there's a lot of precipitation today, and that's expected to carry through till tomorrow. We will, based on the flood message we issued last night, we will get a little break, but then there's more rain predicted for later in the week into the weekend. So we do have that flood watch in effect until November 1st. So just be careful around waterways and expect localized flooding. I also wanted to let you know, if you haven't already seen it, the kiosk for the Needler's Mill is up, and wanted to thank those folks from the Millbrook Valley Trails Committee who provided photos and information. That was greatly appreciated. And it looks really good, a lovely partnership with the Friends of the Hope Mill and the Millbrook Historical Society. So that is complete. And I think that's it for my update, unless anyone has any questions.
Okay, great. Maureen, do you want to talk very briefly about the tree planting, seeing as it was sort of under the Orca guise?
Sure. Yeah, all of the trees, seedlings and saplings that we planted took, except for 6 of the cedar that I planted on Station Trail. I planted them in an area that had been compacted by machinery when the culvert repair was done. And I did try to dig round, but and give them lots of space for the roots to spread out. But there was probably another reason why there weren't trees there in the first place. There must be something underlying that area that cedar don't like. So I'd like to try something else in that area next year, just to give a mask so that the public yard can't be seen from the trail in that area.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll make note of that. And hopefully we'll have a more formal work day in the spring where we might be able to get some planting done and or combine it with the timing of Orca's tree sale as well. So do you have any thoughts in terms of what might do better there, Maureen?
I really don't. I don't, because it's quite a severe slope. I tried to put a little lip so that water would stay with the cedar. There's a lot of runoff down to the stream that takes water away from the spring faucet at Station Trail entrance. So I don't know what kind of tree that's evergreen preferably would survive there.
Meredith, you have any thoughts?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I don't know about evergreen. I would probably have to look at the site. Dogwoods are really resilient and they'll grow just about anywhere. So And they do have those, lovely red stems, and they're quite thick. So they might be a good alternative to at least try to get established.
Mhm.
And then they might provide a better spot for something else to be planted later on, but they'll at least stabilize those soils, and they can grow just about anywhere. So we could give that a try in the spring if you'd like.
Mhm. That'd be worthwhile.
Okay, and next time I'm down that way, I can take a look as well and see if I've got any other suggestions.
Okay, you'll see the brown cedar. You'll know
Okay.
where it is.
Don't pull them out. Sometimes they come
No, I
back.
won't. I know. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any other questions or any other updates or from Meredith? No.
Nope, that's all the update I had. Thank you.
Any questions? No. Okay, great. Trail report, John and Maureen.
Do you want to go first, John?
I could.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess the summary would be the Gany Transit and the LD Tour were both in good shape, dry and no impediments. I ran into Dave and he said to make note that the bridge at the DL Detour can be slippery when it's wet. And we were talking about the possibility of maybe putting some shingles on it. The bridge at on the transit was dry when I walked over it, so I don't know whether it would be the same. Whether we should do the same thing to it as well, but it was certainly dry and wasn't slippery. I did mention in the report that the boardwalk coming away from that bridge is a little bit off kilter, but it's not anything dangerous. So, it wouldn't be a priority for repairs at this time. Middle Trail was dry and clear as far as Backstage Pass, and I came down Backstage Pass to walk across the rail bed, and Backstage was in good shape too. Nothing to deal with that I could see. The rail bed was clear as far as the Grand Trunk Pathway, which is where I jumped off next, and that's where things seemed to really change. There was a wet section as I was going north toward the rail bridge along the path. There was one wet section which didn't seem too significant, but heading east from the bridge before the section of boardwalk that we put in, I'd never seen it as muddy and messy as what it was that day. And it would like to put boardwalk in there. I would estimate there would be two sections, maybe 15 meters each. And I guess with weather like this, it's not going to get any better. Whether we would do anything before winter, I don't know whether we should be talking about putting up a closed sign or just leave it and see what happens. And then the same with Baxter Creek Trail. It's wet right from the MNR pond on the south side of Zion, or anywhere there was, it was damp north of the ponds, and anywhere that you weren't on boardwalk, it was getting muddy, except maybe in the spruce forest there. But like where you jump off, normally the boardwalks are there to be dry, and now the muddy spaces at the end were getting bigger. And then there was I think I said there that there was a new section. Yeah, the section north of the boardwalk was wet too, which is unusual for any time I've been over it before. And then the same thing north of Zion to about Theater Trail was muddy. Anywhere there weren't, well, I shouldn't say anywhere there weren't boardwalks, but just places where the mud was coming up through the turf. And generally by this time of year, I would have expected it to be dry. And again, I don't know whether there's anything we would try to do before winter, but it was a surprise to me how muddy it was down there. The trail from the bridge to the fairgrounds is dry and clear, and the steps there going up the hill are starting to lose their shape a bit. And I think they could be repaired if we took the gravel out, reset the 4x4s, and then put the gravel back in. But I'm guessing we could get through the winter without doing that. Theater Trail, I didn't walk, but I noticed there was a low-hanging branch that should be cut off, and I can take care of that at some point. And I assume it's like June's, only wetter, like it was in June's report, only wetter. And let me see, it seemed to me there was something else. Oh, I did notice what I used to call the Lost Trail seems to be being used quite a bit. So there was no trouble following it through. So that was interesting to see. I made a little joke about changing the name back from Lost Trail, but I don't think we actually ever named it that. And then Station Trail was dry and clear, but a cyclist had mentioned a hanging branch, and I had my nippers there, so I just snipped it off. So, yeah, I was disappointed at the amount of mud I saw on Baxter Creek, and we can talk about whether we should try to do anything about it at this point, but I guess that's about all I have to say. Are there any questions from that, or?
Well, why don't we, Maureen, why don't you go ahead and then we can have a discussion after.
Okay, so I did the rest of the circuit. So starting at Med Mountain, right on the field itself, the lower portion of the seeded area over the spring diversion that was done could use some more topsoil and seed next year. It's really very sparse and rocky. The upper portion has taken really quite well, and at least, if you don't look at it too closely, it looks almost as good as the rest of the field. Going up Upper Med, the fence at the lookout really does need more substantive repair. It's really, really deteriorated. So I'm wondering if we need to speak to Brandon Stevens about who should do that. But as good neighbors, I think we have to help them keep that fence in repair. The root staircase is very wet and mucky this year and has been off and on throughout the summer, especially at the very bottom. And I was thinking some flagstone at the bottom, quite a substantial threshold, actually. I was thinking just a couple flagstone, but I was up there again today, and I think something like 3 feet by 3 feet at least, or 3 feet by 4 feet of flagstone would be necessary, and then an effort made to find the source of the water and divert it with the O-ring. And it was raining a bit too much for me to figure out where any water was coming up from below. I said tent, but I really meant fort. The fort that was in the creekside cedars by the second boardwalk has been removed, but the fire pit was still there the last time I looked, and I'll go in there with a shovel. I meant to do it while we were doing boardwalk repair, but I forgot to fill it in. The planned workday boardwalk repairs on the sunken section of the S boardwalk and on the first corner bridge on Baxter Creek as you enter on the Baxter Creek side. That very successful repairs. They're much better than they were, and much more stable as well in the case of both of them. Much better undergirding this time. On the actual bridge over the little side stream spring from Baxter Creek, there are three or maybe 5 boards on that bridge that are going to likely need replacement soon. I wonder whether they'll withstand another heavy freeze thaw in January and February. So if we do have extra wood, I wondered if we could have a look at maybe doing that before it gets too cold. And the pamphlet and poop bag dispensers, Rob's now replaced. And there are other poop bag and pamphlet dispensers that have been replaced elsewhere on the trail system as well. So everything looks neat and tidy. I'm all out of pamphlets though, so we'll need to reorder.
Yeah, as am I. So sorry, Maureen, what was the second last thing you said before the pamphlet dispensers in need of wood? Where's that?
Oh, the bridge, as you go over the corner bridge at Baxter Creek and then go over the bigger bridge, the real bridge with the side rails, there are several boards on that bridge that are now beginning to turn on their nails. They're kind of pivoting on their nails and some bigger holes are forming. So
Okay.
I'm just wondering if they need to be replaced before the real hard winter weather comes.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it yesterday when we were up there, but it's the way that bridge is designed, it's not an easy repair because for some reason they put almost like trim pieces down. So you've got to remove the trim pieces first and then remove the actual boards and then replace the board and put the trim pieces back down. I mean, it's not
easy.
The end of the world, but it's but okay, I've got some wood here left over from yesterday, so maybe I'll take a look again when it's dry this week and go and see what's possible.
Okay, so I didn't walk much of Baxter Creek. I walked from Med to where it gets muddy, and it doesn't take too long before the long boardwalk is finished, or after the long boardwalk is finished for it to get quite muddy. So through the summer and the wet season that we've had, everything continues to deteriorate without our supervision and without our being able to attend to it because of COVID and the wetness. So it's going to need substantial work before we can open that trail. And I really wondered if we could do a committee walk through the area at some point, either now or in early spring. Cedar Trail at the M&R Ponds is in good shape throughout. The slope down to the bridge over the creek on Cedar has been really wet this year. It looks like 2 or 3 things are going on. I'm not seeing any new spring formation, but Dave D'Agostino is better at that than I am. But there was definitely compaction and certainly soil saturation. And right as you step onto the bridge from the east side, I think some flagstone there would likely help the situation. It's mostly kind of fieldstone, cobblestoned in that area, and it's just the area at the step off or step from the bridge that needs flagstone support, I think. The rail bed beyond where John Paulus walked, north of the Grand Trunk entrance, looks great. The workday repair of the gouged and gully washed area over the old rail bridge is terrific. Grand Trunk is, as John said, was in great shape throughout, and I noted the same mucky areas. What used to be transient, sort of seasonal and specific rainstorm related muck now seems to be longer in the season. I wanted to say that even into October, because the weather was so great, I met so many hikers and mountain bike users from away, other parts of the province, out of province, and now out of country. Just as COVID phases have allowed, I've met experienced trail users too. I met a gentleman while I was out there on Friday, who actually is a specialist in mountain bike positioning and customizing. and who works out of 7 networked mountain bike stores in Montreal and the island of Laval, north of Montreal, called Quilico. And he said, you know, this is a gem. And he comes and cycles and hasn't even been into the Ganaraski yet. So he doesn't even know what there is beyond. He has reason to come to visit his parents in Peterborough every 3 to 4 weeks. So he's out there quite often and really, really appreciates it. And in general, I'm finding that the trails this summer have been remarkably clean. You know, with the exception of the fort builders on Ned, who were really only problematic for a few, you know, a week or so. Most trail users are carrying out their trash and recyclables, and those that aren't are using the receptacles provided. Now, the one thing that I wanted to bring everyone's attention to, and this will require negotiation with the MNR, I guess, is that the fishing and viewing platform ramp at the trout pond still needs to be built up to the threshold of the platform to provide easy wheelchair and scooter access. It keeps sinking at the top, so there's a 3, sometimes 4-inch gap that would prevent a wheelchair from getting up onto the platform. And I think that's it. I guess I didn't include it in the report, but I wanted to say that, you know, because of the LDD moth this year, AKA gypsy moth this year, the canopy was really very open, and now we're seeing mostly black poplar leaves on the trail. They're really necrotic. They've lost their color almost immediately. What we're also seeing a little bit of strangeness on the trail. A lot of mullein is invading along the trail side. And you'll recognize mullein because it's got a silvery, fuzzy leaf. And this is its first year of growth. So we're getting only the rosettes. We're not getting the tall stalks yet, but that will happen next year because the canopy will likely open again next year for the second year of LDD. So I'm gonna have to, I'll need help deciding whether I should be taking some of those stalks off to prevent further invasion into the forested areas, or what I should do, or just let nature take its course. The happy consequence of the canopy being open is that there are more oak seedlings up on the moraine and elsewhere, closer to Millbrook. More oak seedlings than I've ever seen anywhere at any time. So the open canopy and the extra fertilizer from the caterpillar poop serves a purpose. So that's nice to see, but they have to survive. Those seedlings have to survive next year's caterpillar onslaught to make it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so if John and Maureen, as everybody should, you're submitting the trail reports to Cindy, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll have a record of things that we can do come spring. If we this year, we'll be able to hold our larger workday in April or May, so that we can complete those items. Okay. John Frizzle, do you want to share the photos of yesterday, just so we can show everybody who wasn't there what we got done? Can you pass control over to John, Cindy?
Absolutely. Just give me a second here, Rob.
Right. So we
Chairman
had,
Jackson, just when Mr. Frizzle is loading that, I just wanted you to know, Maureen, that I changed tent to fort in the minutes.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Before we show the faces, are we confident that everybody's comfortable with having their faces publicly displayed on YouTube?
yes, I think so.
I don't mean to be a fun crusher, it's just the rules.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. Would you, John and Maureen, everybody that was there? John
Well,
Frizzle, John
my
Fowler?
face is okay. I'm not sure about, like, unless we do we have to have a sign? I'm not sure whose kids those are, and I think they're the ones we worry about most, so.
They're-
I'm not
They're
sure.
Rob's.
They're my kids. So
Oh, well, then I guess you can
I'm
sign
doing
off on that.
It's fine, yes.
Are you okay with that? Okay. Can you guys see it okay now?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so this is just kind of a start picture. We're all by the ponds, nice and spread out. And then we've got father and son doing some work on the trails, which is great to see them out. This is one section of the rail bed that was quite washed out that we did some repair work on. Rob helped us with some 4x4 that we put in there, and then myself and my neighbor John Armstrong. Sorry?
Sorry, 6x6 section.
Oh, it was a 6x6, sorry. Myself and John Armstrong, we're bringing it all down. There was lots of fill to move, but we got our work out for the day. And it's all tamped down nice, so I think it should hold up well. It might need a little bit of TLC, but that should definitely get us quite a bit of time and make things much safer there. And you can see kind of what the back side of it looks like there. And these are some of the pictures of the rest of the we split in two groups, and this is kind of the rest of the project. Maureen and Dan and everybody else was working on over there with the boardwalk repairs up around Meds Mountain. So that looks excellent too. I haven't had a chance to get over and look at it in person, but definitely looks really nice. Nice work, everybody.
Yeah, so the first bridge you come to was replaced. The sharp corner bridge. Excuse me. And then everybody knew the issue we had with that sort of on the S boardwalk on lower Meds, that the beam, the support had broken, and we attempted to repair it a couple times. That entire section was replaced. So yeah, it looks really good. And thank you everybody for their time and effort yesterday. It was really appreciated.
Well, great work up on the rail bed. That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yes, John and John worked very hard on that. The township brought in sand and gravel, but they weren't able to get it much past the gate there on the fourth line. So it was not a long walk in the wheelbarrows, but it's not easy when you have that much weight in sand and gravel. So it was a lot of work. So yeah, we appreciate that. Okay, any questions on the workday or the trails?
Just one comment on that, Rob. I did do all the posts trying to promote the workday for social media, and I know we had COVID to deal with and a number of restrictions and things this year, but I think we have people that would have come out if we given a little bit more advance notice. So if we can kind of maybe plan ahead and put something in the Millbrook Times and get the message out there a little earlier for our next work day, I think we could definitely get a bigger crew out for sure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, John. But I think this was sort of purposely planned to be a bit of a smaller one, just because the township and still the sort of concerns around large number of people. So certainly this was my goal for yesterday was really to get some pretty necessary repairs done before winter sets in, and I think we did that. But certainly my intent in the spring, April, May, assuming everything's not necessarily completely back to normal, but if we continue on the path we're on, which is continually improving, that it will be a normal work day in quotes, with advertisements, hopefully even a lunch at the end and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's certainly the idea going forward.
Great.
Okay, general business, fairground entrance. I'm
sorry, Rob.
sorry, David.
I think with the trail report, we were going to come back to a couple things.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
So there were a couple things. I don't know if John Follis if we were going to talk more, or I jotted down some notes as we went. Do you want me to just go ahead with the notes I have?
Please.
So the so there was the mud on the Grand Trunk Trail that was pointed by both John and Maureen. So I'm assuming that's a spot that in the spring a shortcut had formed around it. Is that the same spot? And it was okay. So yeah, so that is interesting that it's wet again at this time of year. I know on the, speaking of the Baxter Creek Trail close to Zion Line, I think it would normally be dry. Like it would normally be dry at this time of year, except it seems that ever since we had that big rain, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago now, I think we had 5 inches in one day, that it's been wet there ever since. So I don't know. I would think that if it's a large rain, that it would all get, that wouldn't matter so much. It would all be shed into the creek or wherever it goes. But it really seems to have stuck around since then. So I don't know if, anyway, I don't quite understand that, how that's all come to be, but yeah, it is sort of unusual for this time of year, but not unusual for the spring when we're dealing with a saturated ground situation. So maybe it's just the ground is saturated from excess rain this fall.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the stuff we're seeing is a bit of an anomaly because of such the wet fall that we've had. So my suggestion would just be, I think right now there's not a lot we could do about it anyway, given the timelines we're working in before the frost and the snow come. But I think we just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I guess as long as we're comfortable that it, as long as it dries up in the summer months, then maybe that's our normal.
Absolutely.
Fall and spring are wild cards. In terms of closing anything that's muddy right now, I think I find it really gets damaged in the spring, because you go from this wet state to an eventual hardening, and then whereas at this time of year we just kind of stay muddy for a while, and then it tends to even out over the winter, and then in the spring that's where we're concerned about not getting the ruts and the erosion that we might see from heavy use in through the mud, especially if that hardens in place. That's the worst situation. So, okay, well, so that was one comment. Maureen, the flagstone that you mentioned after the bridge on Cedar Trail, I know when we put that little bit of flagstone in that area last year, we did put a couple pieces at the other side of the bridge there, and they seem to have disappeared. So the last time I was out, I grabbed a couple stones that were there and put them in that muddy spot. So hopefully that helps. We could use a few more, but I did notice that water, I was out maybe a day after a biggish rain, and water was still pouring down that trail. It actually comes down from I don't know, like on that large slope that comes down on I guess the north side of the bridge there. The lower half of that anyway, all the way down to the bridge, was running water, and so I didn't poke around to find the source, but it's it's been a lot of water lately. So, and it all collects down by the bridge. So there might be a way we could strategize to try and channel it, just to stop it from pooling at the bottom of the bridge. But it is, there was a lot of water on that trail this year. One thing, when I saw John Follis on the trail, it was right at a spot on Baxter Creek where we had built, so this is in between the fairgrounds and Zion Line, where there was a previous beaver dam and flooding on the trail, and we'd built a shortcut trail off to the side. I've just been religiously taking that shortcut trail, and I never stopped to look at how the old trail was doing, but even as wet as everything else was, it was dry. So that old beaver dam that's in there that we routed the trail around, that must have been like slightly washed out by the heavy rains, or maybe it's been gone for longer than I realized, but the water level's lower there, and that old trail is usable again. So in a way that gives us hope for the remaining section of Baxter Creek Trail and the existing beaver dams there, that I don't know, just a good surge might help us out in reopening those.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. I think maybe there's a possibility of creating almost a loop again, with the new trail and reopening of the old trail.
It would be great. Yeah.
I think it's just something we need to keep an eye on in the spring and see how it fares.
Yeah. Yeah, the slippery bridge. So, John, I don't know if John, do you still have shingles or did you have shingles or roofing paper or something that we might be able to use on the that first bridge as you're heading towards the Ganaraska on Gani Transit?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's actually in the work shed. If it's not, it's in my garage, but I have a roll for sure.
It's
And
not
so-
work shed.
Okay.
And so that's like an asphalt, like it's actually a grippy roofing material.
Yeah, it's like it's a roofing shingle. It's just a roll.
Okay. So we should try that. That was actually, I was telling John about that because I heard a report from the enduro race that was there that a couple of riders went off over the side of the bridge there. And I don't know why. It's, for me, it's the trail approaches quite straight to the bridge. There's no reason to, be veering sideways on the bridge. And I personally don't find it slippery, but maybe just after a rain or in the right conditions, it can just be a little slick. So versus the other bridge on Gani Transit, closer to the Ganaraska, maybe the shape of it or the approach coming into it is different. And maybe with the handrails there, it's a little, there are fewer incidents, but it's worth us adding some grip there if we can. So maybe John and I can take that on. Sorry, I'm almost done here. The wet Baxter Creek Trail. I've forgotten what I was going to say there. Oh, the only other thing I was going to add is the, as we get into hauling flagstone into spots that are, deeper into the trail, like the spots, the T intersection on the Meds Baxter Creek loop there. That's a good distance to be trying to haul flagstone into. And I don't find the wheelbarrow to be the most efficient way of hauling materials. And so I saw something recently where it looked like an appliance dolly. So just like the two wheels on the bottom and the stand that comes up with the handle on the top. I didn't know if you could get something like that with more of an off-road tire on it. I think it would be good because you can stack the rocks down on the bottom fairly well, or strap them to the dolly itself. Or if you're dealing with wood or cut lumber, you can stack it against the dolly and strap it tight, and then haul it into some of these into some of these locations where it's otherwise challenging to get a wheelbarrow in without like tipping it and dumping your load, or only being able to manage 3 pieces of flagstone. So I don't know if anyone has any ideas there, but I know if I'm the one that's hauling materials into a spot like that, I'd love to have a better tool to use to get stuff in.
Yeah, I'm just looking online here, sort of what possible options would be. Has anybody purchased one or seen one of these things before?
Are you talking, Dave, about, like, I've seen different wheelbarrow structures that have like a bi-wheel front, and that's kind of equivalent to a dolly, but it has the actual basin on the top still. Is that sort of a hybrid potential that might work, because it would create the balance that you're talking about from, an unstable load? And it would probably be tall, as long as the wheels were tall enough and you had the clearance that you're looking for. But most of the bi-wheel ones that I've seen the wheel is quite significant.
Okay. So like two wheels versus 4, is that what you're saying?
Well, there are ones that I have seen that are 2 wheels at the front that are instead of, most of the 4-wheel structures I've seen are more like wagon type styles.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, like, when you mentioned a dolly, like I think of a 2-wheel dolly, like for moving like fridges or freezers or things of that like. But that a wheelbarrow with that bi-wheel front might accomplish that by still allowing you to use it for all purposes that you would for a wheelbarrow instead of just one, more specific thing. But I think of going through some of those trails, it certainly would make life a little easier.
Yeah. Yeah, it was actually like the fridge cart type thing that I was thinking of. So
Okay.
2 wheels and the upright design.
Yeah.
I've tried a 2-wheeled wheelbarrow at one point in my past, and it's fine as long as you're going straight. But if you got a load in it and you're trying to turn there, I wouldn't recommend using the 2-wheeled wheelbarrow on the trails. We could try one sometime if we could rent it.
Yeah.
What about a like a gorilla cart? like a four-wheel sort of all-terrain wagon.
Well, yeah, like where two of the wheels turn, like it would have a handle to help with. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I guess I saw something and maybe it only had one wheel on it, but anyway, it could have been a DIY thing that somebody made. But I was just like, oh, that seems great for just hauling stuff through a trail. But yeah, anything. I guess my first thought with a wagon style thing is that does it is it already 50 pounds, and then you're gonna look more on top of those 50 pounds, and can you just find something lighter that's as basic as possible that you're just attaching the materials to, and it's got a wheel in it. Just.
Why don't we do a little homework, Dave, and explore some rental options before we look at buying something like that? We can try it out on a couple of projects and see how it goes.
I'm sure I know someone with a dolly that I'll just have to remember who it is and find it. If you give me a week or two to figure that out, Dave, I'll get back to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I just sent a link on the chat to a Gorilla. It's a dump wagon, which might help for sand and gravel too. But Melissa, you just sent me something, you said?
I sent a picture to your email.
Okay. Where's that from?
Well, that one in particular is from Wayfair, but it looked like it would be something that would support on the opposite side once it was put down.
Yeah, can you do you want me to share it here?
Something like this could also be purchased probably through Amazon as well.
Yeah. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Something like that would be, is that what you were thinking, Dave? Or like that to me would be precarious to balance flagstone in.
Right. So, I mean, I was just imagining it without that additional attachment on the front. And then yeah, I can see how that could be used. But yeah, you wouldn't want to add all the extra weight of the flagstone, further away from the wheels like that.
As opposed to something like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
let me try and remember where it was that I saw the one I'm picturing, and then I can forward something around. Sounds like
yeah. If you and John want to do some homework, maybe that'd be great. Okay, so maybe now is a good point to actually bring up. So when we did our work day yesterday, there were a number of people that were using the trails while we were trying to repair bridges and replace boardwalks, etc., which is good to see that the trails are being used, but it created a bit of a hassle. So I was wondering about, we've got some money left in the budget before the end of year, and I know we're going to talk about here the budget here in the next section, but I just thought about getting some simple signs made up like we did for the trails closed signs that just say trail repair in progress, and we can put them up at each end of the trail sort of when we're going to be doing repairs like that. And we could word it to say something like possible detours, or we could just have it say closed, etc. And we could just put them on even sandwich boards and put them at the entrance of the trails both ways, so that people know before they get too deep in that they might have to turn back or they might have to go off trail. We had people wading through the bush and stuff while we were replacing some sections yesterday, which nobody really seemed to mind, but it was, from time to time we had to stop, get up off our hands and knees and clear out so that they could cross. So just a thought.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay. Do we want, no, Ms. Page, should we discuss that in terms of making a motion for a budget purchase when we talk about the budget and 8.4, or do it now?
I would say we can capture this under 7.3 through you, Chairman Jackson, as a follow-up from your trails report or however you want to encompass that, because it just seems to be piggybacking through this conversation. So I think that it's easiest just to capture it here if you're going to move on a seconder. And I think similar to the last lines, I think if you guys can capture the verbiage of what you want that sign to say in the motion, that makes your lives a little easier. And then an upset limit, I believe, is what we did last time. If David is going to move forward with acquiring them, or whoever is, to give them an upset limit of how much money you want them to spend.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay. Does somebody want to make that motion? I don't believe I'm allowed to make a motion, am I?
If that direct question is directed at me through Chairman Jackson, yes, you are able to make a motion.
Oh, I am. Okay. So I can make a motion to have an upset limit of, I don't know, so let's say $200 to purchase 4 or 6 signs, because obviously, like yesterday, we're working on multiple trails at the same time during work days. To have signs to note to users of potential works in process, verbiage to be discussed. So we could just say trail repair in progress. Caution, trail repair in progress. I don't know that we need to necessarily close the trails. If we want to do that, we already have signs that say that. What do people think in terms of the verbiage? Matt, you, John?
I was gonna make, well, 2 suggestions. I'm thinking if they're only going to be up, for the duration of while the work is proceeding, I don't think there's any intention that they might be left overnight if work was going to be renewed, right, Rob? Just so I'm clear on the purpose.
Correct.
I was just going to suggest, like, I'm sure I have a few of those wire election sign frames kicking around that would make it a little lighter. And if you got one of those sort of corrugated plastic signs,
yeah,
they're certainly cheap, and you could certainly just, pluck one in wherever you'd like. And that might be a pretty affordable way about doing it. And there are, they're weather resistant, obviously. So
yeah, that was my thought. I think at Signorama, if you buy, like, they'll just throw in the wire frames for free. Like, if
okay, yeah, we'll do it now before next year, because those things they become gold pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so but does anybody have any concerns about what it says? Is just caution, trail repair in progress? Is that fine?
Yeah, I think so. I'd hesitate to close the trails while we're doing it, because we got really good responses from people walking past. But if we were suggesting we were going to close it, anybody who made a special effort to get to that location and the trail was closed, it would kind of undermine what we're trying to do.
No, I agree, John. But I think just like, if we're gonna be replacing the floating bridge at some point, obviously we'd have to close the trail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we already have signs that say that, so that's fine. Okay, so that's my motion. Ms. Page, is there any? Have you captured it? Do you need me to be more concise in the description?
Nope, I'm comfortable with that, Chairman Jackson. Just $200 to purchase 4 to 6 signs, indicating caution, trail repair in progress, and you just need a seconder.
I'll second it. That's John Wallace.
Okay, all in favor?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
End up using the corrugated signs and using them on the frames that Deputy Mayor Graham has spoke about, or if however you choose to do that, that gives you the upset limit of the $200.
Yeah, that's fine.
While on the subject of signs, and since we're back in trail report anyway, in 7.3, I neglected to mention, I put it in my written report, but I neglected to mention in my verbal report that we still need a proper large formal trailhead sign at the old school entrance.
Yeah, well, that's all part of the whole redesign that we also need to talk about.
Oh, on that too, somebody informed me, and I haven't looked at it, but John Armstrong, who I was doing some work with, said the big trail sign at the end of station has been damaged.
It's already
fixed up? Okay, great, thanks.
And all the wood that was left at the end of Distillery Street from our repairs yesterday has been taken as well. So thank you to the Parks and Rec team for fixing both of those issues. Okay, well then let me add one more into this then. So Maureen, that's part of the larger sort of redesign that we're need to discuss. But you and I are both out of brochures, so I think we need to order some brochures because they're being used and they're going fast, which is good. But I don't have any more left, and you don't have any more left. And although most of the bins are now filled because of Workday, we should have a motion to set an upset limit to order more brochures.
Through you, Chairman Jackson, do we want to speak to the brochures under 8.2? Is there something about the brochure that needs to be amended prior to us generating more of them? I don't want to take over, but I just wonder if we want to wait till we get to 8.2 on that item.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Okay, so then can we move on to 8.1? I wasn't sure what this was about.
I can speak to that if you want. Cindy, if you can give me permission to share the screen again, I can fly through this real quick. I think pictures are going to do it a lot more justice. So just give me a second. And you guys should be able to see that. So what you're going to find is through different seasons, being on the committee for a long time now, that different parts of the trail are more appealing different times a year. You know, some of the spots that we're talking about now that may be wet are fairly flat and low lying, but in the winter time, they freeze up really nice and they make great for skiing or hiking or any of those kinds of cross country, snowshoeing, any of those kinds of things. This section here that I circled in the blue is really popular, probably one of our most popular areas in the late fall when it freezes up into the winter. And the only entrance for most of our residents here that are in the downtown area, which is where a lot of our population accesses the trails, is either Meds, which we don't have that loop flowing yet until we get the floating bridge fixed, or the fairgrounds entrance where the red arrow is. And anybody who's been down there knows that the way trails have been designed in the past, it's kind of almost like the shortest route, but the shortest route also seems to be, in many cases, a straight downhill shot, and that can create some issues, whether it be with freezing, and that one turns into like an ice slide, and it's really hard for anybody to access that section, the very popular section of trail, unless they go all the way around to Zion Line. So what I'd like to show you is, this is the section here we're showing. This is a little bit more blown up. It's off the end of Main Street. This is the red that I was showing here, the access that we have now to the green, which is Baxter Creek Trail that flows along. And this section here that's highlighted in the blue is township property, according to a vet that we've talked about. And I would like to propose that we explore a possible alternate connection to Baxter Creek that has a more safety aspect to it, especially in the winter months. And I know this transition here, I talked to Matthew about it, is still quite steep, but it's how we're accessing it, as opposed to a straight shot down here, which creates a big bobsled ice slide. We have a lot of space that we could go back and forth and do some switchbacks and transition into this section and make it quite a nice alternate entrance. Not something that has to be used all the time, but something that we could use for our residents to look at during, especially during those winter months. So I went down there and took some pictures. There is an entrance there, Rob. I know I talked to you about it. So we don't have to create a new one. We just have to move the cement block out of the way. Then what we would do is put a post in to address any issues of motorized access, just like we did with the other entrance. It seems to be working really fine. It's kept all, any motorized vehicles or things out with the post that we installed, Rob. So you could do the same thing at the other end. There's a gravel, walkway that goes already right through there. It's all easy to go through. And this view here that you're looking at is the closest access, as far as neighboring properties. As you can see, it's not intrusive. You can't see anybody's backyard. You can't see anything but a nice tree line. It's very far away. And there's also at the end of that spot I was referring to, the fence has been taken down already at the back of the fairgrounds. So we wouldn't have to do very much with, opening up any fence there as well. And then looking at, me creating a switchback along this section. Again, we'd have to go out and look at it, flag it, talk about it together. But I think it would be a nice option for our residents and definitely address, some safety concerns for some of the patrons that would like to access the trail, especially year round. So I don't know if anybody wants me to go back on any of those pictures or has questions, but that's something that I'd like to bring up.
I think so. I think it's a great idea. One unintended benefit is that you then do create a small loop option by entering at one fairgrounds entrance, going down, following that trail to the other fairgrounds entrance and going back up for like shorter dog walking loops. The other thought I have, John, when you showed the property boundaries, I believe the township also owns the property next to, so the middle parcel there.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that one's owned by the township as well. So if for any reason that simplified the switchbacks or the entrance, I don't know for sure, but through our pump track conversation, we were talking about being up at the top of that property towards Frederick Street by the flagpole. And I understood that from our conversations to be township property as well. So anyway, that's that middle parcel. So keep that in mind if that simplifies this or changes it in anyone's mind. But I think it's a great idea.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or want me to go back through any of the pictures at all? No? Okay, so if not, what I'd like to do is put forward a motion that the trail committee is interested in exploring an alternative entrance from the fairgrounds to access Baxter Creek, given that the current entrance is very steep and there's a safety concern to the patrons that use that existing connection. Did I catch the wording in that? Okay, Cindy?
Through Chairman Jack, Mr. Grizzle, yes, it does incorporate exactly what Ms. Hurley would like us to have. The only other thing I would like to add is if we're going to do this, that we should add this to our work plan.
Absolutely, I would agree 100%. Do we need any seconders for that motion? And is that our procedure from there, Cindy?
Yes, we'll need a seconder, and then you'll need to call the vote to make sure the committee supports the motion.
Great.
So I wasn't sure if is it the safety issue? I guess I don't want to draw. If one of the benefits for me is that you can create a loop based on the existing entrance. So I see the safety aspect with the existing entrance that as for some users, I see it as a safety issue, especially in the winter when it's icy. But I don't want to frame that entrance as being like a hazard or anything like that, because I don't think it is. It's just,
I think I talked to Matthew about this as well. And because we are, basically recreational trails, these are not to, any part of our trail, Dave, I think, is going to have some hazards on it. And we're not really saying that one is unsafe or one is there's slippery spots on the trail anytime in the winter. I think we just want to make something that makes it a little bit more, have an option for people, but I agree with you. There's much more benefits to it than just the safety aspect.
Yeah.
Is that right, Matthew? Does that make sense? Am I correct on
that?
Yeah,
I think it's just important to keep in the intention of the motion is to formally explore it, right?
That's right.
This is phase one. So let's not, we don't need to nitpick or overanalyze. The motion is for exploration. Like there's a myriad of factors that go into any sort of consideration for establishing entrances and linkages, and all of those to start them need to formally be started. But I'll speak to this more when we get in 8.3 about the work plan discussion, because I think that's really a critical piece to planning and moving forward for the committee to be effective and efficient as a whole. So But yeah, that's it. Again, the motion is to explore it. It's already been somewhat explored, but I think the efforts to date have eliminated one of the alternatives, and now we need to formally explore an alternative one. And there's like I said, that's all the motion really asks for, in my opinion. And that's very fair.
Okay, I'd happily second the motion to explore that for sure.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes,
Okay, great.
I think in particular, it's going to add another picturesque entrance. You know, I think it's always lovely if the entrance brings you quickly to a lovely view and to a stop off point. And right at the bottom of that entrance is a really nice view of the oxbows of the creek. And not very far is the front face of the major beaver dam, which is quite a feat of engineering in and of itself. So I think it would be a lovely addition to the trail.
Okay, great. Okay, 8.2, Millbrook Valley Trails brochure. So as I mentioned, we need more brochures, but I think the purpose of this item was really to further our discussion from last month in terms of naming and the wording. The wording around bicycles and the naming of the section of trail that Mr. Frizzle just sort of talked about, in a sense, the coming down from the fairgrounds.
Through you, Chairman Jackson, sorry just to quickly interrupt, but Mr. Frizzle even had a different brochure up that he just spoke about than this one. So can we just confirm that this is the correct brochure?
That wasn't a brochure, was it, John?
It was a screenshot from what I downloaded from the township website. I believe what it was the bottom half that we were looking at. If you scroll down, I just zoomed in and took a screenshot of that section because we weren't looking at Station Trail or the whole brochure, Cindy.
That, I believe, was an old one, and these are the ones that are on our website. Melissa might be able to speak a little better to this because this is what we quickly found out when everything came down about the enduro Ganny race or the enduro race. So as a committee, do you believe, as the creators, that this is the document that is final approved one? If you were going to get them printed, is this what you'd be getting printed, Robert?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that document there, if we scroll down to the wording, is something that I think we should take a look at. And this is what you were talking about through you, Rob, is to address is that bicycles are not permitted on the Baxter Creek Trail and Meds Mountain Trail. And I think we were trying to adjust that. If you scroll to the bottom, Cindy, we had an agreement that we did back in our minutes before that from the fairgrounds entrance down, stop there, which is in brown, bicycles were allowed from there over to the fairgrounds, or sorry, from the fairgrounds down to Zion Line. And that's where we were talking about maybe renaming or readjusting before we went to reprint more brochures.
Yes.
Is that right, Rob? Or yeah, okay. So I think it just might have been an error in the wording when we originally did the brochures, or we didn't catch it.
So
Yeah.
would the correction be as simple as taking that fairgrounds trail line and choosing in what I'm assuming would be yet another color, like dare I offer a green, because I don't think we have one, and that would just take on that sort of portion of Baxter Creek Trail, because it's if that's going to be the case, I think that's fine, but we do sort of double down on the let's call it diagonal text of the Baxter Creek Trail right along what would be that portion.
That only solves half the issue, though,
Yeah.
because we're still saying bicycles are not allowed on the Baxter Creek Trail, and the Baxter Creek Trail continues north after the Fairgrounds Trail.
Right.
So is the solution in there, Rob? You think that we do a severing of the Baxter Creek Trail and renaming section of it, or?
Well, that's what we talked about last meeting.
That's right.
Everybody to go and think about a possible solution.
What about putting a green stripe down the fairgrounds trail, leaving it brown, but putting a green stripe down the middle, thin green stripe, all the way down to Baxter Creek Trail to Zion and the first trout pond, just to indicate that it's a shared use trail.
Well, why don't we, I think there's two solutions. One, we can change the color of the fairgrounds trail, as Matt said, to green. But Cindy, if you scroll back up to the verbiage, we could say something like bicycles are not permitted on the, got too old to read that. Bicycles are not permitted on the Baxter Creek Trail and the Meds Mountain Trail, except for, north of the fairgrounds trail, or something to that effect, right? Rather than, if we change, my concern is if we change trail names and stuff, we've got to get new trail markers made up. We've got to go through the process of redesigning the brochure and, all that sort of stuff. But that's just my 2 cents.
So I would suggest putting bicycles are not permitted on Meds Mountain Trail, period. On Baxter Creek Trail, bicycles are permitted south of the fairgrounds.
May I have a suggestion on that? What if we just left it open, so we're not always redesigning our brochure, and said bicycles are not permitted on all sections of trail. Please check entrance for proper signage, because Dave, you've done a really good job, and I know Rob, you worked on it together, stating really clearly at the beginning of Meds or Baxter Creek Trail that bicycles aren't allowed. There's signs up there. I wonder if we just kept it open in case there's any changes in the future.
Well, the verbiage on the brochure is not that difficult to change. The mapping is, but I guess my concern with that, John, would be that it's sometimes more, not that everybody looks at brochures before they get on the trail, but it's sometimes it's more difficult to see those changes in rules while you're on the trail itself. So if I'm on a bike and I'm going down the fairgrounds entrance, and let's say we open up the original Meds Trail again, so once I go across the fairgrounds bridge, I hang a left and I'm riding down Meds, lower Meds all the way to the floating bridge, and I come all the way up to the end of Distillery Street. Then I realized that I wasn't supposed to be on that.
Yeah, I can see your point for sure. I think we're all in agreement. We just got to figure out the most efficient way to do it.
I thought Maureen's suggestion was good, saying that, emphasizing Meds Mountain Trail first, and then providing the exception of Baxter Creek in a separate sentence, where bikes were permitted south of the fairgrounds entrance, something to that effect. I don't know if it needs to be worded perfectly, but that was fine with me.
Other thoughts? Okay, so do we agree then that we change the verbiage as per Dave's suggestion, Maureen's suggestion, and then we also change the color of the fairgrounds trail on the map to green or a determined color, and then also add it as a separate trail in the legend? Or do we need to add it as a separate trail in the legend, considering it's only less than half a kilometer?
I even wondered, Rob, sorry to interrupt. I even wondered if you just call it fairgrounds entrance, because it's not then it doesn't need to be identified as yet another trail. It's quite short. And it isn't captured in the legend, and it is kind of confusing that it is, it looks, it's text identified as a trail and then it's not listed as a trail, like you could even perforate it like we have here as a trail connection if you wanted to, because that's in the legend.
And not change the color.
Yeah, I think just changing the wording might be sufficient.
Yeah.
We can always look at something more detailed later on if we need to on the next printing, but I think just changing the wording might be the simplest solution for now to get it printing out quick, Rob.
Well, I mean, I don't know that we need to get a printing out tomorrow, but any changes to the map will require going back potentially to the graphic designer, unless anybody's got good Photoshop skills.
Well, the only
Mr.
thing
Chairman.
I was also thinking about is if there is a bit of space there to include like some sort of, a bicycle image and then an arrow pointing southward along that portion of the trail, making it clear that, or insinuating that it's from that entrance. But then again, and then obviously adjusting our verbiage inconsistency,
Maybe along the same lines, you could, if we were looking at the map itself, you could, draw a box around the trails where bikes are not allowed, which would just be as simple as overlaying a frame or a box around meds and that portion of Baxter Creek where bikes are not allowed, just as a no bike zone. Maybe that has to be added to the legend. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, I think that would have to be added to the legend.
Mr. Chairman Jackson, just while we're discussing this, we've just scanned this QR code onto our phones and it's bringing up that brochure that Mr. Frizzle had brought up. So I don't know how to change QR codes or how any of that works. That's way beyond me. I apologize, but it is connected to an old brochure.
Well, that brochure is being hosted on the Kevin Monaghan website, correct?
I would agree with you, except for when we go there and we click on it, it isn't coming up with that brochure. It's coming up with this brochure.
you have to just change the name. Do you have an IT person? They just have to change the name of this brochure on the website to be Millbrook Trails brochure.pdf and stored in that same folder that's shown.
With that? Perfect.
Weird.
Currently, we are the IT team, so we will we'll look into this and report back.
You have access to that folder as like a shared folder on a network drive?
Yeah, we're going to try it as we're talking right now. Yeah.
Okay, so as long as this file has the same name has the name Millbrook Trails brochure.pdf and replaces the one that's already in that folder, which is old, then
Thank you.
it should work. Did we want to come back to the idea of just changing the text to Maureen's suggestion and keeping it as simple as that?
Well, yeah. What do people think? I'm just conscious of, the many months it took us before of, coming up with the finalized map and things. And now that we have to do it all virtually, it might be even more difficult. So, yeah, I mean, what do people think is the easiest solution?
Cindy, do you mind scrolling to the map itself so we can just, thank you. Or maybe just a little further and
To the actual map?
yeah, I just wanted to see, if as we're looking at this and we can see the legend and the map itself, we can understand, what's a big change and what's a small change. But the legend's fairly crowded, so I can see how adding something to the legend might require the designers to tweak it in order to create space for another row, as opposed to us just taking this into our own whatever we have for photo editing or illustration editing. You can just add a bar and some text to add something to the legend, but yeah, we could probably still do that. If we're looking to do a hack job, we could get it done.
What about and is this map is north right at the top on this? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
So what if we just left the wording as bikes not allowed on Meds Mountain, and northern section of Baxter Creek Trail, please obey all signage that's posted. Something along those lines, wordsmith it, you know, and it's not trying to define an exact area. The signage is there, just obey it. And it clearly states that meds is definitely, you know, off, but something along those lines. That's the best I can come up with.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's getting closer to it. And I
Okay,
think, you know, as soon as we open Baxter Creek Trail, if Dave could put up some more of those really great signs that are at Med that are not, I mean, they're not a huge put off. They tell people that there are other parts of the trail that they can use, you know. I think those are really, really well done.
There'd be no problem to add more. No, let's get them printed.
okay, so we're not going to,
Yeah.
we're not going to add the boxes at the trail entrances for bicycle access. We're not changing the color of the fairgrounds trail. We're just changing the verbiage to fairgrounds entrance.
Well, to make it the least disruptive solution is probably keeping everything as it is. And I'm just trying to get my negative and positive statements about the verbiage correct. But if we say something that to the effect of bicycles are not permitted on the Baxter Creek, or sorry, on the Meds Mountain Trail, and are only permitted on the Baxter Creek Trail south of the Fairgrounds Trail entrance. Like something to that effect is only changing the verbiage, doesn't require any color changes, route changes, or anything like that. But then your verbiage is true in its intention.
I think that's good, Matthew.
I forgot that we would need the graphic designer for all that, and I don't want to go back there.
Yeah, only would have to be in a different place though. If you say bicycles are only permitted on Baxter Creek Trail south of the fairgrounds entrance, that would exclude all the other areas where they're permitted.
Right.
So you would have to say on Baxter Creek Trail, bicycles are only permitted south of the fairgrounds entrance, or on Baxter Creek Trail.
Yeah.
I liked better what John said. Bicycles are not permitted on Meds Mountain Trail or on Baxter Creek Trail north of, or on the northern portion of Baxter Creek Trail.
Please obey signage. That's how I said it.
Yeah, I think you have to make a reference to the Fairgrounds Trail. So if it's if not north of the Fairgrounds Trail, you could say it that way, which is consistent, but then it makes sense why it's there and is the same color and identified. You know what I mean? Like it's the only thing we've named that's the turning point. And I think it's pretty clear, and referencing that in whatever verbiage we come up with, Rob, I think is fine.
I'm just typing it out here. So
yeah, I wrote it down a few different times and crossed it all out. So
okay, bicycles. So I'm suggesting two separate bullet points. One, bicycles are not permitted on Meds Mountain Trail. Period. Second bullet point, bicycles are not permitted on Baxter Creek Trail except for south of the fairgrounds entrance.
if it's separate, Maureen, do you think it matters about changing it to the positive phraseology?
No, I think it works okay. Yeah, it's simple. That's the best part.
Sorry, did we say not permitted on Baxter Creek Trail except for the fairgrounds entrance?
Bicycles are not permitted on Meds Mountain Trail.
No, got that.
Bicycles are not permitted on Baxter Creek Trail except for south of the fairgrounds entrance. Please obey all signage.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Is that good for you, Cindy?
Absolutely. I don't know who makes the amendments to this, but I think the verbiage sounds fine.
I make the amendments.
Okay.
I can make the amendments on the text part. Do we need a motion for that, or can we just do it?
Oh, I think let's get a motion just so we know what version we're working
Yep.
off. And that is my recommendation with my clerk hat. If we can please add a version or a date to the bottom of this brochure so that we know which one we're working off of.
Yeah, good idea.
But then you'll also need to save that file with the same name so that it comes up from the QR code.
Absolutely. That's what we're working on behind the scenes right now.
Okay, nope, no problem. Well, it won't be whatever you have now. It'll be whatever Rob updates back, right?
Yes, we're going to start with making sure we can update with what we have now, but definitely if Robert gets
Sure.
that changed, then we'll definitely
Sure.
get that up there as well.
Okay, so I'll make the motion then to amend the existing brochure with the said verbiage and in addition to add a version number.
Wonderful. And I will include the verbiage in the motion just so we're all clear as well.
Okay, do you want me to read it again or does everybody got it?
I have bicycles not permitted on the Meds Mountain Trail, bullet point number 1, bullet point 2. Bicycles are not permitted on the Baxter Creek Trail except for south of the Fairground Trail entrance. Please obey all signage. And then I just have point 4 or point 3 would just be that the revision number be included.
Okay,
For a revision number, Cindy, are you thinking about just like a date stamp? Like it would be
Yeah, like
October
October
2021?
2021.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
just so that we know what version, what date it is. So that's what I mean by that. Yeah.
Yep, good.
okay,
And you just need a seconder, Mr. Jackson.
yeah, can I have a seconder for that? Dave, all right, all in favor? Okay, so then on that note, can we then, can I make a motion to have an upset limit to order more brochures? We've got $1,600 left in the pot. If I pull up my stuff from Vistaprint, I think our last printing of 900 brochures, 750 plus 150 is 900. Yes, it was $385.22. And that lasted us basically from, well, that was in June. We've gone through 900 brochures in 5 months, 4 months. But I think they're also, the trails have more heavily used in these months. So do we want to set an upset limit of $400 for additional printing of brochures? Those include both the trifold and the horizontal and the vertical brochures. We have a mix of both.
I'll make a motion for that, Rob.
Yeah, okay. I assume printing costs haven't gone up, but who knows with, is there a supply chain issue with paper now? I don't know. Is $400 a good price? Yeah. Okay. Can I have a seconder for that motion?
I can second that.
Dave seconds again. All in favor? Wonderful. Okay.
Oh, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
may I raise an issue? When we were talking about brochures, I didn't know whether we were going to be modifying the design at all, but I noticed that some on that brochure, or at least the brochure I was working off, some of the distances on the map part of the trail are different than what's referred to down here in the like where the trails are listed. I'm trying to think of which one. Station Trail, it was the difference of 1.5 and 1.4 or something, but some of them
1.6 and 1.5, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a number of them. If we're at some point when we're updating the whole brochure, I'd suggest we add that to the plan to get them tidied up.
Okay, I can do that as well. Do we know which number is the correct one?
No, I certainly don't.
I noticed Baxter Creek says 2.8 on the map and said 3 above. Oh, I was thinking they might be doing some rounding, but I guess there's decimals there too.
Well, then you have the fairground trail at 0.4, which isn't listed, so I thought that might help us, but it doesn't. With the Baxter Creek length, if it was just going to be included, but that still doesn't jive.
There were a number of them that were off, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think Yanni Transit was off and DL was off a bit.
Oh, I'd say Ganny Transit is longer than 1.6. So does it say somewhere else? Down below?
2.7 down below.
So are the map ones reliant on GPS stuff that the crew from Fleming used? Would they be more accurate then?
Meredith, do you remember that?
I'm not sure. I can ask Alyssa to check that and give us the accurate distances.
Wow.
Tammy at the county could also probably do that because she has all that same data.
And they're all different.
Yeah, I'm looking at the old map
Except-
trying to compare to
except for
see if
Except for meds, I don't think there's one that's consistent.
Good
on the
catch,
old
John.
brochure it's 0.6.
I don't know how we missed that.
Yeah.
That wasn't really my most interesting suggestion.
Would that would require the graphic designer to go in, I think.
Well, depending if unless and if the map ones are correct, then I can change the verbiage on the back.
I think the map ones, Ganny Transit, I have on Trail Forks, it's 2.6 kilometers. So 2.7 is much more correct. Let me see if I can check Cedar Trail. Yeah, Cedar Trail 0.7, that's about right. The Grand Trunk Pathway, that one's tricky because it's a loop. But
Yeah, our old brochure said 1.4 for that one, Dave.
and which I guess would be including the full loop. So I'd say because really it would be longer than Cedar Trail if you were doing the full loop. They're just showing the sort of down the hill portion, the straight shot there. Anyway, at first glance, I'd say the map is what's correct.
I'd agree with that, Dave.
Yeah, I'm just checking on Google Earth. I just did Station Trail, and Station Trail came up at 1.45 kilometers. So yeah, I would say the map is correct. Okay, so I'll change the distances then on the verbiage to match the distances on the map. Yeah.
Sounds great, Rob.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thank you.
May I bring up my interesting thing now?
Yes.
Okay, so Cindy, would you mind scrolling down to the bottom of the map? There, where it goes out to the end of Ganny. And I was going to suggest that staff explore the possibility of extending, not with one of our colored lines, but just with the other trails, to extend that out to the point where Glamorgan becomes the road allowance, because a lot of people are driving up to the end of DL, perhaps mostly to use the Ganaraska trails. I truly believe that DL is a road allowance, and therefore the township owns it. But anyway, staff could just see whether there's a problem with putting that out as another trail, so that people know they can actually drop off either at the end of at the point where Glamorgan becomes unopened, and that way you can walk all the way from there to the village or wherever if you choose to. So I don't know if anybody else is interested in that, but to me it makes the walk more it's more practical.
Which part of the road allowance are you talking about, John? The west end?
Well, yeah, just where, like, technically we stop where we stop, and yet we're at the road allowance. So lots of people are continuing out to Glamorgan, and there was 3 cars parked at the end of DL, and I'm guessing it was people who were biking down into the Ganaraska, but they could just as easily come east to Millbrook.
Right.
But they're not aware that that's a possibility. And so
on sorry to interrupt you, on Glamorgan where DL meets it.
That's where the cars were parked.
Yeah.
But technically you could drop off where Glamorgan goes from being an open road to becoming a road allowance. And you could start at the road allowance there, and then you could You could either just go to Glamorgan, or you could go right out to where the road becomes serviced.
Yeah, and that technically Glamorgan is also where the is it the Oak Ridges Trail and the Ganaraska, like the big hiking trails that go across Ontario for long sections. I think they both come up through there, so it is also an access, like a hiking access point for those trail connections as well.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Mhm. And you don't have to have a Gani pass to be there?
You wouldn't have to do it if you were just going out to Glamorgan.
Okay.
But if you want to go down to the Ganaraska area, like the people who were parked there and going into Ganaraska should have had passes.
Right.
It just kind of makes people who are using the Millbrook Valley Trails aware that they don't necessarily have to stop when they get to the end of that trail and turn around and come back.
Yeah, I think that would be something for the next iteration of the brochure or the,
Yeah, that's why I suggest staff could
Yeah.
explore it.
yeah, but not for this printing.
No. I get it.
Okay, so is that something that staff could explore? Okay. Melissa or Cindy?
If it's the direction that the committee would like to take, we can definitely explore it. I just think it's important that we add it to the work plan.
Okay.
Maybe one additional point on that. I have heard of people getting ticketed on that, and these are rumors, it's not firsthand knowledge. People getting ticketed on that road allowance between our trail and Glamorgan because the Ganaraska is under the impression that it's their property. So it might be worth staff maybe exploring that and having a conversation just to establish property ownership there. Because it should be free. You should be able to go between our trail and Glamorgan without question, without a Ganaraska pass, because you are on the DL road allowance property, as I understand it.
So how be I try making a motion that we ask staff to explore it and put it on the work plan and see if anybody will second that.
Great.
I'll second that, John.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
I'm in favor. And we call it the Glamorgan Dial intersection, or what do we call it so that staff knows what to call it in the work plan?
Through you, Chairman Jackson, can we request that Mr. Follis participate in the staff discussion so everybody's on the same page?
If he's okay with that.
I'd be fine with that, sure.
And I think, to be fair, let's not give it a title until we know. We can call it, if you're just looking for a title to add it to the work plan, is that what you're thinking, Maureen?
That's right. I just wanted to make sure that it was clear what area of the map we were asking you to look at. But I think having John involved is the most efficient way to do it.
So Ms. Els will be in discussions with Mr. Follis, and then we can coordinate a meeting at the staff level to find out ownership and what the options are, and then we can report back.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so then does that take us then into work plan? Yes.
Yeah, I think so. Do you want me to start that conversation, Rob?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, I think a byproduct of the conversation that I had with John was just a bit about sort of housekeeping. And, you know, there were some discussions a bit about, I think we've had this conversation on a sort of irregular basis throughout, you know, the last 2 or 3 years. But I think one thing that maybe we should take on, and maybe it's not going to be something that we're going to adopt into a trails master plan update, because I think there's going to be a larger picture recreation conversation that update would fall into. So, you know, and Elena sort of, we've got some background work and some notes taken down that we can provide to the next iterations of council and that can be sort of revisited by the future iterations of MVT for what sort of a priority it is. But for the time being, I still think could be a very helpful component of the work plan to identify projects on the horizon near and far. Obviously, the potential fairgrounds, or I guess that the secondary entrance to the fairgrounds is one that we should include on a short-term list. On maybe a slightly longer list is the bridge work that we've been discussing about starting some planning on and discussions around, and because that is going to be a much larger project that we were talking about, sort of utilizing some of those funds that were from the donation towards. So we still don't really have any sort of updated, or even a working list of those sorts of jobs. And having just come out of one of the work plans, even things of a maintenance nature could be incorporated on that sort of short-term list to say, well, this for the year, these are going to be the, these different sort of walkway bridges that we're needing attention because the areas are getting more money than normal. Those sorts of areas could be highlighted quite quickly and quite easily in a sort of an ongoing work plan. And then, while COVID's still around, and I think we're all hopeful that we're moving closer to the end than we are to the beginning what that is concerned. But should individuals want to, have some time on a weekend to want to put towards some sort of maintenance project, so not necessarily a big formalized work day, but if there were things that needed some attention, we could say, well, that could be an update in the trails report to say, hey, I had some time. We did this sort of trimming over this sort of portion because of the things that were down, cross it off the list, and the work plan continues on. So it can be helpful from a transparency standpoint and from an organization standpoint to have that. And I think we could make some of that a component of the work plan that Cindy's designed for us with not a ton of effort. And then it obviously can be a living document as well as what the original was intended to be, and can sort of provide a bit of a framework whenever that larger master plan update gets underway, because it's just something that the municipality doesn't have resources to allocate to right now. But that said, there's nothing stopping Millbrook Valley Trail from formalizing its plans for the future. And then if there is turnover at the committee level, well, this is something that's, sort of the modern iteration of a work plan for what works have been done. And I think it just adds a level of organization and a bit more transparency that we could all benefit from, and will help us all moving forward. And unfortunately, this year we've had a lot of turnover on certain committees, and luckily there's still the majority of the core people are still here, but there's no guarantees that is always going to be the case. So having a sort of an ongoing work plan is, I think, really critical to being successful and going through transition successfully as well. So that's my sort of long-winded diatribe, but I think Cindy's got the good structure of the work plan. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. If we wanted to have a subcommittee to have a brief discussion about it and bring it back, we could do that sort of over the hiatus without a meeting in December, and then could come back in January to say this is sort of what the discussion is at a high level at this rate, and Cindy can help us with that sort of formatting, and then people can move to adopt it into the work plan, or we could say it's out of whack and we'll start again. So that's sort of what I didn't want, that sort of entity of organizing our workflow and to get lost before, we're only heading into the last year of this iteration of the committee. So I think that would be really beneficial for all parties involved to take on that, and then, do it in some of the downtime to do some of that organization work. Open to any comments or suggestions.
It's a great idea, Matthew. And if we are looking at, forming a committee to discuss things to add to the work plan, I'd like to be a part of that.
For you, Chairman Jackson, to Deputy Mayor Graham, can I just confirm that you're looking at potentially adding another section in here? We would potentially call it like maintenance and repairs to the trails, and then we could just keep an ongoing log so that if somebody, okay, perfect.
Yeah, Cindy, I expect you to be involved. So you are the formatted queen when it comes to whatever you would like to incorporate it. But the idea is that it's either an extension or a separate entity following a similar format to your work plan. Whether it's like a maintenance schedule or, ongoing work plans, like, you know what I mean? Like a maintenance schedule or things of that extent. We can call it whatever the subcommittee would like to call it. It's just about formalizing it into something that's in front of us that we can talk about. Is it escalating in priority? Similar, like for municipalities, we have the very same thing for all of our road infrastructure, right? And at the county, we have like thousands and hundreds of pages of a list that's so small you need more than one microscope to read it. But it shows you how things have escalated. If there's, if we can even keep it as a sort of a historical record to say, well, this seems to be an ongoing thing that, over the last 5 years, we've had to do it 3 or 4 times, or it's becoming more of a frequent issue. Maybe it's something that we need to do deeper works on to address, to prevent it from going forward. Things of that nature. By having those sorts of lists, you can track it much more easily than just saying, hey, I went and did this time or that time. It just provides a little more insight as to what the priorities are upcoming. And I think there's multiple benefits to that sort of structure, to having that ongoing.
Okay.
Mhm. I think a lot of it will arise naturally out of the monthly trail reports. I think we'll just add to that list and take away from it as these smaller projects get done.
For sure. But it's also can start, we can start allocating resources from the committee to say, okay, well, we're going to start talking about some of these larger works, like where are we going? Like, and what's the priority? And those are important too. And, it puts it in front of you and reminds you of, well, I thought we were going to do this on this project and this on that project. And, I think it's just going to be, the idea is that it just makes things a little easier to follow.
I think it's a great idea.
Thanks, Meredith.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to meet with John. Robert, do you have any issues with trying to come up with something, maybe and presenting it to the committee, maybe in January, just as a sort of a short list or things like that?
No, none at all. And I'm happy to be a part of that discussion too.
Well, then the 3 of us and Cindy can get together and sort of come up with the sort of hybrid list that we have, and we'll try to present it. If not, well, we're not meeting in December, so it'll probably be in the new year, and just, add it to the list, however Cindy formats it for us.
Okay.
That sounds like a great idea. And I do agree from Maureen. I do believe a lot of this will come out of our work plan, but it reinforces it, especially after what David had spoke to about the work flagstone at the bridge, as well as Baxter Creek. Like, you would know that in the spring, this is a problem and you can keep those, and this is what we did, but this is problems come back. So I do think that's a great way to track the works that have been done, and if they're escalating, not escalating. And we can do it, Matthew, similar to the way we do our capital and report status. We'll just keep another section we'll call it maintenance and repairs. I will be more than blessed and honored to help you, but I do want to make sure we include Melissa, because Melissa is our staff representative. And I am eventually going to be passing the torch over to Carly. She's our new deputy clerk, but for right now, I'm going to maintain being the clerk on this committee. But as time goes on, definitely, I think that's a great idea to keep a log of all that. And I also want to, if you agree, Chairman Jackson, I'd like to put like Mr. Frizzle's name in front of, the fairgrounds entrance, and then John Follis is in front of Glenn Morgan, so that we remember who kind of initiated these. And if we need to go back for any clarification or conversation, then we kind of know where they've come from. Does that make sense as well?
Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, that's fine.
That's a good point, Cindy. I didn't think about that as also helping staff, right? If they have a question or a comment, they could go to that person directly instead of, always coming to Rob first and then going down the chain. That's a great
They're
idea.
a very, very active group, which is phenomenal. And so you're right. It is a lot for the chairman to keep his head around and remember who's, brought these ideas all forward. So that just kind of keeps the ownership in front of it.
Perfect. Do you want a motion for that, Cindy?
I don't feel like we need a motion unless you guys feel like we do. I think give staff an opportunity to do a mock-up for probably it'll be the January meeting, to be fair, by the time everyone kind of gets everything figured out, and then we can bring it forward and we can just adopt the new plan as presented.
Okay, so you'll try to coordinate between November and December a meeting with those individuals and myself, and then we'll go from there.
So yourself, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Frizzle, is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the 2022 budget discussion. And for this, Ms. Page, I'm understanding that we just need a motion, do we?
We do need a motion, having a look at what it is, if there's any new projects or any new plans or anything we want to focus on for 2022. If you just want to move forward with your same budget that you guys already have in place.
Yeah, I think we've always moved forward with the same budget. I think certainly in terms of what we want to complete in 2022, you know, the larger projects like the potential of replacing the floating bridge, et cetera, but we already have the endowment of $18,000 plus for that. So, but I'm happy to open up to the floor.
Just for clarification, we did get that from finance. It's 16,219.
Okay, sorry, my mistake.
No problem at all. Just so that I did get that number.
Yep. Okay. So, but I'm happy to open up to the floor to see if there's any discussion around a change of the potential budget that we need.
Is everyone aware, through you, Chairman Jackson, of what the current budget is? Currently, your membership is 300. So I think that's one that we should talk about, because what we did with that is we just rolled that into the overall budget because we didn't feel that we wanted to move forward with the Ontario Trails membership. But is there any other membership that this committee might be interested in entertaining? If not, then we can remove that line item. If so, then we can allocate the dollars. Materials and supplies, there's $4,500, and then contracted services is $1,500.
I think the only, I think we've got this solved now, but I know it was a bit confusing at the time of discussion, was with regards to the advertisements, right? And I understand that we're not renewing that with the province.
Is that the Todd signs you're speaking of?
I believe so, and it was covered through the municipality. I think that was the, I'm not sure that was fully sorted out with regards to the budget.
We have been removed from that, yes. Yes.
Okay, perfect, okay.
And the money was reallocated back into the Millbrook Valley Trails budget. It was taken into the ECD budget because there was oversight, but this round, definitely we've been removed from that.
Got it, okay, great.
Okay, so anybody have any other discussion, any other thoughts on that?
The one topic I might bring up is to ask Maureen how we're making out in controlling weeds. Like,
yeah, so I guess I could have included that with my trail report as well. Really rather well, I think, considering how open the canopy was. I really worried that we would have much more poison ivy regrowth and much more dog strangling vine growth than we did. However, if we have another year of open canopy, we can expect that we're going to have more spraying to do this year, because there was some dog strangling vine that escaped us, particularly on Danny Transit in the area behind between the first bridge and Fire Route 310. Halfway along there, there's quite a stand of dog strangling vine, not on our property, but on the adjoining property, and it all went to seed. So that area on our side will likely have to be sprayed next year, which we haven't had to do in a couple of years. But considering what we've been up against in the past with dog strangling vine, I think we're doing really, really well. I think the budget will be at least what it was last year, and maybe some more for that one area on Ganney Transit, which takes up a lot of Sean Gillen's time, because it's a very awkward area for him to get to. He can't ATV to it, and it is awkward. So it'll be the same or a bit or some more next year.
Okay, well, I mean, we certainly we spent double the amount this year than we did on wood, because we hadn't bought it in 2 years. But we still have money left over. So, but that's, you know, my 2 cents. I don't know what anybody else have any other thoughts?
This doesn't enter into, you know, the annual budget at all, but I'm thinking forward and wondering whether in fact the what would you call it, a giant gazebo or a pavilion or whatever it is that used to be on the med field on that flattened area on the high area of the field, and which had to be dismantled because it was not stable years ago now. I'm forgetting how many years ago, at least 5, I think. Now that we have so many education groups and group hikes beginning to take place on med, it would be really nice to have a covered area so that groups don't have to bring their own tents and shelters and that sort of thing. So I just would like people to think about that as a possibility going forward. And I wondered if the Cowan endowment might consider that a worthy project.
Yep, certainly. I agree. I think there's potential discussions we could have with other organizations as well. I mean, my understanding was that was taken down also in preparation for the dam reconstruction, and there had been some talks with Orca about potentially contributing to a new replacement once all construction was done. If I remember the many committee meetings on Save the Dam Mill that I attended, but yeah, that's certainly something that's in the back of my mind as well, Maureen. Okay, so do we need a motion then for a formal decision on the budget?
Absolutely, we do need a motion. And so what we need is the allocated amount and your mover and your seconder. So memberships, I think we just need to lock in for that one if you guys want to move forward with that one or not. It sounds like your materials and supplies and contracted services, just based on the discussion, are probably okay where the numbers are at.
So, okay, so is everybody okay to move the memberships money over?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Then can I have a motion to keep or I can make the motion to keep the proposed budget the same as 2021 with the exception of moving the membership budget into our, what are we saying, capital expenditures bucket?
Through you, Chairman Jackson, can the motion just say that the materials and supplies be $4,800 and contracted services $1,500 for the Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee, and then a mover and a seconder?
I think that's perfect. Can I have a
Seconded.
a seconder? John Frizzle, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, items for next meeting. I think we've covered a lot of it already. Is there anything that we may have missed?
I was just going to propose if like Millbrook MTB, the mountain bike club, should be giving updates at any point to the committee, if that's of value, or if you want me to just, since I'm part of that club and then part of the committee, if you want me to just give updates if there's something that I think is relevant. I just wanted to see if we wanted, if the committee thought it would be of value to have maybe a standing agenda item. And just thinking thinking back to the enduro race, it's likely that if there was a standing item, I might have brought that up at the first sort of win that I caught of it. Anyway, so maybe throw just a Millbrook MTB update on the agenda for next meeting, and I'll update the committee on some things, and then we'll see if we need to do that again in the future.
Yeah, what do people think?
Fine by me.
Okay. So let's, I don't think we need a motion for that, do we, Cindy?
No, and you just cut out, I apologize, David. Was it to add a mountain bike update?
Oh, so Millbrook MTB is the name of the mountain bike club in Millbrook. So, and we use some of the Millbrook Valley trails for group rides and things like that. So I think periodically I should just reach out to the committee. So if we're going to be planning group rides for the season on some of the trails, I should be asking for the committee's permission for that. And so why don't, now that we're approaching the end of our season, maybe we'll just set an agenda item for next meeting, and I'll give you an overview of how the season went, and then And then thinking about it more, maybe at the beginning of next season, I'll come on the agenda again and just formalize some things for the season. But Millbrook MTB is the mountain bike club.
Okay, any other items that we'd like to add for our November 22nd meeting? John Follis?
May I just clarify that Alyssa is going to contact me when she wants to talk about that trail, because I said I would take part and then I just wasn't sure about the follow-up.
Yes, John, I will.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
Chairman Jackson, can you recap what you believe will be included on the next agenda?
Sure. Financial report, work update, trail report by myself and John Frizzle.
No, not the standard. I apologize. Not the standard, but you said there were some items already. So I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Not our standard items, just over and above.
So probably an update on work plan 21, maybe not. I don't know. Brochure update. I'll have them printed by then. I can show the new version. I don't know. What am I missing?
Dave's going to do his presentation or update.
That's already included.
Okay.
Yep, perfect.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I can think of now.
No problem. We can circle around closer to the meeting if we need to. And are we leaving the date as the 22nd?
Or the 29th. Or-
What you have approved is the 22nd, which is fine. I just didn't want us to all show up on the 29th because historically that's what we do. But at the beginning of this year, you did approve the 22nd for your next meeting.
Did we? Okay. Any
Is
reason
there
why?
something on the 29th that we're all forgetting?
Yeah. Any reason why we did it on the 22nd? Cindy?
I can't find anything. I unfortunately was not your clerk in that day, but I can't see anything that indicated that, which is just why I just wanted to quickly clarify. But if everyone's fine, we can go forward with the 22nd as previously approved. I just didn't want, like I said, everyone to show up on the 29th and me to show up on the 22nd.
Yeah. Does that work for everybody?
It's still the fourth Monday. It's just there's a fifth Monday in November.
Right. Okay. Okay, it works for me.
Yeah.
As long as the agenda comes out, we'll show up, won't we?
Yep.
That I guarantee I will send you.
Okay. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
For all of your time and all of your efforts. Tomorrow, John, you got your hand up.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to lower it after I asked my question.
That's fine. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And we'll send these updates out as we get them in terms of the brochure and things. And thanks, everybody, again, who helped out yesterday on the workday. And have a good month. And we'll speak to you in 4 weeks.
If you can just get me a move for and a seconder to adjourn, then we're good to go.
So moved.
I'll second.
Seconded by Maureen and Dave.
Sounds good.
All in favor?